can, just please put your name and your associated agency in the chat. We can then proceed from there. All right. I guess at this time I'd like to pass the meeting off to the commissioner just for introductions.
All right, great. So thank you for everybody that came here today. Thank you for everybody joining us online. I'd like to start by welcoming everybody to New York City Local Emergency Planning Committee. Thank you all for joining us today. I think as all of you or most of you are aware, this is the first in-person, I guess it's not, can we call this an in-person meeting? Hybrid? Hybrid since 2019. We're getting there. Hopefully the next one in a year will be fully in-person. Although, I don't know, I guess hybrid is also the new normal. As Commissioner of New York City Emergency Management, I just want to emphasize how important it is for us to all be connected to the communities that we serve, and meetings like this are very critical to enable us to be able to do that and achieve that mission. And these partnerships are also really important to us. Be better prepared, excuse me. That's a tricky one. For any emergency, including those with hazardous materials incidents. Today we'll be hearing from a number of different experts. Look forward to those conversations. It's critically important information that will be disseminated, and it's also really important that you all help us disseminate that information to your constituents, your communities, your agencies. And just want to close by in particular thanking the LEPC team, particularly my team here at NYC for their hard work putting these meetings together. I hope you find it informative and helpful, and thank you all for participating. I'm looking forward to getting to know everybody today and in the coming meetings and in our work together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. I guess we can now pass it along to Commissioner Cosgrove. Yours?
No, I think I'm going to call it straight.
Okay. There's one thing I've learned in emergency management is adaptability.
Yeah.
Issues.
Commissioner?
Commissioner Cosgrove speaking.
Yes, Commissioner. You're on phone here at OEM.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for your persistence in trying to make this hybrid meeting work. And thank you, Commissioner Iskel, for your remarks. In light of our slow start this morning, I'd like to thank everybody for participating in the local emergency planning committee, and remind everybody that this is a collaboration that's mandated by federal law under the Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act. We are a combination of elected state and local officials, police, fire, civil defense, public health professionals, from the environment, transportation, hospital officials, facility representatives, and representatives from community groups and the media. We've developed emergency response plans, and in there we identify facilities and transportation routes of extremely hazardous substances. We describe the emergency response procedures on and off-site, a designation of a community coordinator and facility emergency management coordinators to implement our plans. We outline our emergency notification procedures and descriptions of how to determine the probable areas affected by the public releases. Description of local emergency equipment and facilities, and the persons responsible for them, outlining evacuation plans, training methods, and methods and schedules of emergency exercise response plans. The New York City's Community Right to Know program, a local law 26 of 1988, requires the city to effectively regulate the storage, use, and handling of hazardous substances. As a part of the law, we oversee the use and storage of hazardous substances that pose a threat to the public health and environment of New York City through its Right to Know program. The Right to Know program manages the reporting and storage of hazardous substances by requiring businesses and facilities to annually file a Tier 2 report detailing the quantity, location, and chemical nature of every hazardous substance stored within their facilities or throughout the 5 boroughs. The Pennsylvania Right to Know program reuses an online reporting system that allows facilities to electronically submit their annual revised or updated Tier 2 submissions, and the deadline for filing is March 1st every year. The law also requires a risk management plan that is filed. Facilities that store or use extremely hazardous substances or regulated toxic substances that are at or above the threshold planning quantity, or TPQ, as listed in the law, are required to prepare and submit a risk management plan, or RMP, to the Department of Environmental Protection for review, comment, and approval after an inspection of the facility is conducted. This morning, I'm happy to have representing the DEP at today's meeting is Director Harry Meyer, Director of the Division of Emergency Response and Technical Analysis, and Deputy Director Joanne Nurse from the Division of Emergency Response and Technical Analysis. Thank you, Mr. Wilson, for the introduction and the patience of everybody there. And at this time, I'd like to turn it back to you for the minutes of the last meeting.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. If you'd like a full copy of last year's transcript, that can be found on New York City Emergency Management's website. The minutes from the 2021 LEPC meeting. The meeting opened up by providing general housekeeping rules based on the total online format. After the housekeeping rules, introductions were made for those participating in that year's LEPC. After introductions, there was a reading of the 2020 LEPC minutes. After the reading of those minutes, we proceeded on to part of the quarterly HSAB, or the Health Hazardous Substance Advisory Board meeting. After the 2020 HSAB meeting, we were able to review the 2021 HSAB metrics, which were as follows. As of May 31st, 2021, the Right to Know program received 11,175 Tier 2 submissions. Out of the 11,175 submissions, 335 new facilities were added to the database and submitted 2020 Tier 2 reports. There were a total of 10,787 facilities that submitted online, and 388 submitted a hard copy report. That was a 96.5% submission online. Only 3.5% of facilities submitted a hard copy report. As for risk management plans, the Right to Know program currently had 370 plans on file, and an additional 44 that were required to submit RMP reports. The Right to Know program received 64 updated risk management plans and 114 affidavit letters indicating that there were no change to their existing plan. There were 51 risk management plan reports under review and 11 facilities that had been inspected. Regarding the inspections, the Right to Know program inspection unit had a total of 9,718 inspected during the 2021 fiscal year. Out of the 469 facilities that were exempt from filing, 694 facilities went out of business. 1,775 facilities were closed and there was no access, and 65 facilities were issued a notice of violation for non-compliance with the laws and regulations. After the HSAB metrics was reported out, two items of noteworthiness were mentioned. One was dealing with the abandonment or orphaned materials, and basically who the responsible party would be as a result of a car accident. The other noteworthy item that was mentioned during this meeting was related to the joint agency effort regarding the Andrew T. Buckley Funeral Home response. After that, the upcoming details for that year were discussed by Harry Meyer. That concludes the overview of the 2021 LEPC minutes. Again, the full transcript can be found on New York City Emergency Management's webpage. Thank you very much. Harry?
Thank you. So as is customary, when we have the LEPC, we usually merge in the Hazardous Substance Advisory Board meeting, so that will start at this point. We'll begin by reviewing the most recent minutes from the March 15, 2022 meeting. I'll give that to Joanne to review.
The Hazardous Substance Advisory Board meeting began at approximately 10:35 on March 15, 2022. In attendance was our Commissioner Cosgrove, our Assistant Commissioner Peter Fusco, Deputy Director Harry Meyer, Deputy Director John Nurse, Zafar Yakub, Noreen Gala, all from EP, Captain Vincent Serino from Fire Department, and Christopher Williams from Department of Health, along with Kevin Clark of Folians. The first agenda for the meeting, Deputy Director Meyer opened the meeting by welcoming the participants to the first Hazardous Substance Advisory Board meeting of the year. He introduced all the participants representing DEP and stated their roles. Deputy Director Meyer introduced Mr. Christopher Williams from DOH, who has replaced Seth Gert in the role of the Director of Emergency Planning and Environmental Health and Safety for the agency. Mr. Williams expressed that he is happy to be in his new role and will happily contribute in any way he can. The Director Meyer then asked if there were any questions or concerns related to the last meeting minutes, which was held on December 14, 2021. And as there were none, the minutes were accepted as written. Deputy Director Nurse provided an update on the 2021 Right to Know submission year and stated that no in-person workshops were held due to COVID. She also stated that although there were no workshops, the staff continued to assist facilities by phone and email, which has proven to be successful. She also stated that in January 2022, additional training on accounts received and reconciliation was conducted for the administrative staff to better understand how to process checks from multiple and group facilities. Deputy Director Nurse expressed her appreciation to Captain Serino for his assistance in obtaining an email address for the fire department, so that facilities no longer have to send a hard copy of their tier 2 submissions by regular mail. She also explained that the risk management plan group is still going strong despite losing one more employee that chose another career path. Inspections are still not being conducted in hospitals and nursing homes due to COVID protocols. Mr. Zafar Yakub gave an update on the metrics for the tier 2 submissions received thus far in the current calendar year. She stated that to date, the Right to Know program has received 10,656 submissions. She also stated that of these submissions, 10,445 were submitted online and 211 facilities submitted a hard copy report. Mr. Jakub stated that 240 submissions were received from new facilities. The program currently has 380 risk management plans on file, and additional 6 facilities are required to submit an RMP. Mr. Jakub stated that the Right to Know program has received 103 RMP affidavit letters indicating that there were no changes and 40 updates to existing risk management plans. She also reported that there are currently 26 risk management plans under review and 1 facility that requires a plan has been inspected. In regards to the Right to Know inspections, Ms. Jakub stated that the Right to Know program inspection unit performed 6,073 inspections during the 2022 fiscal year, and of these 148 facilities were exempt from filing, 246 went out of business, and 1,189 facilities were closed or there was no access granted. And 205 facilities were issued notices of violation for non-compliance with the right to know laws and regulations. Director Mayor compared the tier 2 submission numbers pre-COVID to the current numbers and ascertained that they were relatively similar regarding the number of submissions received by JIRDA. Director Meyer explained the number of response requests that has now reached 95% pre-COVID numbers, indicating that New York City is recovering and industry is returning to full operational capacity. He also explained the categories of the types of jobs JIRDA responds to. He also stated that he is happy that the field deployments are returning, with the first being the St. Patrick's Day Parade on March 17, 2022, I'm sorry. Director Mayor also went over the upcoming deployments to include the United Airlines Half Marathon and the opening days for both the New York Yankees and the New York Mets. Director Mayor invited Mr. Kevin Clark from OEM to discuss his recent email regarding the agency's consequence management plan. Mr. Clark explained that it is designed as a reference document documenting each agency's role and operational capabilities. Mr. Clark continued to explain that he has a new role at Emergency Management related to public safety. To kickstart the new operational function, Emergency Management will be holding a partner agency meeting at the end of March to discuss it further, and that invitations will be sent out shortly. Director Mayor announced that the next meeting is tentatively scheduled for June 14, 2022, and will be combined with the LEPC meeting. In conclusion, Director Mayor asked the participants if there were any other questions or comments. Commissioner Cosgrove thanked Director Mayor for presenting a clear and concise meeting and stated that he is unsure if the LEPC meeting will be held virtually or in person. Director Mayor thanked the participants for joining the meeting and expressed that he looked forward to working with everyone soon. That concludes the reading of the minutes.
Okay, thank you, Joanne. So at this point, let's move on to the Tier 2 metrics, which will be presented by Ms. Yacoub, who's on the phone. Safa, can you hear us?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
For Tier 2 submission, as of June 2022, arrived at 6,250
Safa, unfortunately, we cannot hear you clearly here. I think maybe we'll just read it from here. Okay, I'll have Joanne read the submissions, because there's something wrong with the phone lines here. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Safa.
Okay.
Sure.
For the tier 2 submission metrics, as of June 1st, 2022, right to know received 11,280 tier 2 submissions. Out of 11,280 submissions, 296 new facilities were added to the database and submitted 2021 tier 2 reports. A total of 10,956 facilities submitted online and 324 facilities submitted hard copy reports. That gives us a 97.1 facilities that submitted online and 2.1% facilities submitted hard copy reports. The right to know program currently has 380 risk management plans on file, and an additional 6 facilities is required to submit RFPs. The right to know program received 65 updates to the existing risk management plans and 150 affidavit letters indicating that there was no change on their existing RFPs were received. There are 29 risk management reports under review currently, and as of today, 3 facilities have been inspected. In regards to our regular RFP inspections, The unit performed so far a total of 7,677 inspections during 2022 fiscal year. Out of these, 205 facilities are exempt from filing, 318 facilities went out of business, 1,520 facilities were closed, and there are no accesses granted. 257 facilities were issued notices of violations or non-compliance with directional law and regulations.
Okay. Thank you, Joanne. So, that's a mouthful of numbers to digest. So what I usually like to do is try to put them in perspective. But before I even put anything in perspective, I need to mention something that I know each and every one of you and your departments, agencies, or entities must be experiencing just like we are. Personnel issues. The Right to Know program is down and has been down anywhere between 6 and 8 personnel for the past year. Of course, that takes an impact on the functions that the Right to Know program does. Primarily, the Right to Know program has to do 2 things in order to maintain its Tier 2 integrity and its inspection integrity. 1, we review the documents that come in by March 1st to determine accuracy. And secondly, we do inspections on facilities to make sure that what they claim on paper is what it's supposed to be, in addition to making sure that they're following housekeeping protocols and keeping things safe and basically giving them advice and guidance so that, you know, in the event of a response, everybody's safe from the response and that we don't walk into a trap. So, as I said, being that we are down personnel, we had to retool how we approach, you know, the facility count. With 11,700, or let's round it to 12,000 facilities, that's a significant number of facilities to tackle. When we're at full staff, Joanne just mentioned and Ms. Wilson just mentioned, we can actually go up to 95, 96, even 97% efficiency when it comes to inspections and paperwork review. With the people, you know, being down the way we were, the way we are at this point, we had to figure what needs to be done first. We could always look at paperwork first and then do inspections, but then that doesn't really serve as being the best option. The concept of let me look at your operation first and work backwards is how we took it upon ourselves this year. So what we did was we focused a lot of our effort on inspections and then, you know, put, I would say, 1/3 of our capability on paperwork review, 2/3 on inspections. So out of the 11,700 or so inspections, we are somewhere around 9,780, 9,800 inspections year to date. So this is the first 6-month window. When you look at it from this perspective, we are actually somewhere around 70 or so % of the database inspected. So we know who's doing what they're doing, how they're storing it. We're reviewing it against the older paperwork, making sure things are done. And that's a priority, because when all of our facility partners pull up Tier 2 during a response or some sort of incident, we want to make sure that that data is as accurate as it can be. So being that we're at around 70%, the goal is now at the end of June to slow down inspection, and now retool and go back to the paperwork review. So when we said 2/3, 1/3, now it's going to be 2/3 paperwork, 1/3 inspection, and that should carry us through to the end of the year and balance the workload that we need to do. There is actually a bright side to this. We actually just got permission from OMB to hire people, and as of yesterday, Joanne was kind enough to print out the resumes for another 6 positions that we need to backfill. So definitely when that happens, we will be back to where our normal operations are. But as of now, as I said, our Tier 2 database, which is the priority, and the inspection part of it, is actually being maintained as best as it could be under the circumstances. And like I said, by the end of the year, once we change our operational protocol to do the inspection part, and we get new people, we'll definitely go back to where we were. So this is something, as I said, I know all of us experienced, unfortunately, with changing work environments and offering better positions and pay throughout the economy. This is something we're dealing with. but rest assured, we're still keeping what we have to do. So, that's the right to know comment. Now, let me go on to response. I always enjoy, throwing numbers out. It's one of my favorite things. I love to do numbers analysis. That's a bad habit engineers do. You like to crunch numbers. So, year over year, we were, as I said, at the HSAB meeting, we said we were about 95% year over year. So we were about 5% down, and that was in March. As of this point in June, we're actually 7% down. So it's basically the same thing, 5%, 7% margin of error is acceptable, which indicates business is coming back. And that means response is coming back, and that means we're getting headaches and responses every day. With the order of responses coming in as, and I'm not going to read numbers anymore, because if I read these, you're going to really get annoyed at me this morning. But let's just say it this way. Between chemical odors, petroleum spills, chemical spills, abandoned chemicals, natural gas leaks, and indoor air complaints, and chemical fires, those are the predominant types of responses that all of us find. So this is where we are. All the other unique things of WMDs and building collapses and PCB transfer, all those are unique, they happen, but they're not as frequent. So, as they say, business as usual. I know that sounds funny, but for us in the response business, it's business as usual. So, it leads me to go to the next part. Noteworthy responses and special deployments. Well, noteworthy responses I'm going to actually segue in because that's going to lead into the next item, which is the lithium-ion battery discussion. So that's going to be the noteworthy responses. But before we get there, let me just make a simple, or present a simple summary of what special deployments we've had to date and what is expected of us, coming up before the end of summer. For 2022, the agencies, and I know many faces here who I see on the deployment, we did New Year's Eve, we've done St. Patrick's Day, we did the United Airlines half marathon, we did the Yankees home opener, the Mets home opener, we did the Brooklyn Marathon, and I want to just emphasize it's called the Brooklyn Marathon. We did the 5-borough bike tour. We did the Brooklyn Half Marathon, and we just completed the Israeli Day Parade. This weekend, we're planning to have the Puerto Rican Day Parade, so this is this Sunday. Toward the end of the month, which is the 26th, we're going to have the Pride Parade, followed by July 4th, and we're going to have a subway series between the Mets and Yankees on July 26, 27, and August 22 and 23. And I'm going to stop before the U.S. Open. That's enough for this point. So that's, these are the special deployments. Now let me switch gears and talk about noteworthy responses. And those are the ones where, of course, our colleagues at OEM, and I have to thank them first, and FDNY, for coordinating a meeting concerning lithium-ion batteries. I'm going to just make a very short summary because FD has better data than I have on this, but I'll just say it this way. What our regular, what we call rechargeable batteries, those that you find in scooters, in wheelchairs, in electrical bikes, the common everyday thing that you find, the lithium-ion battery. Unfortunately, some of these batteries have caused a lot of significant damage, which not only resulted in property damage, but in some cases, unfortunately, also resulted in fatalities. I've been to several of them and witnessed buildings literally just gutted because of some malfunctioning battery. Well, this is a problem. All of us here are dealing with this one issue. How do we control these things? There are really no regs here at this point. I mean, on the right to know regulations, on the federal level, the city level, they don't exist. They are very nice in saying that anything that is sold for commercial use is considered monitored, but things that are used for day-to-day operations are exempted. And now it reads clearly under article, correct, section 311. Consumer products exemption includes from reporting any substance to the extent it is used for personal, family, or household purposes, or is present in the same form and concentration as a product packaged for distribution and use for the general public. Nice statement. It exempts everything. Our right to know laws, our facility inventory forms immediately get knocked out because of that one federal statement. We have done research on the DEPN to try to find out other states who have the same problem. What did they do? I mean, this is a universal problem. It's throughout the country. Everyone is trying to figure out how they can circumvent this statement. And what could you apply on a commercial basis to the bicycle shop, to the manufacturer, to the battery reconditioner or remanufacturing process? What could you have them report? Because right now you see these things everywhere. They're in your local storefront. You see them on a bicycle shop. You see them, people bring them upstairs in apartment buildings and private homes. I mean, they're everywhere. Do they malfunction? Unfortunately, yes. Is it a universal defect? We don't know. And I will emphasize why. Just for example, on a couple of situations that we've had. I'm going to go backwards, chronologically backwards. This past Friday, we had a fire job. FD Hazmat was there, sanitation, EPU was there. Scrap metal yard. Man has almost 100 batteries that they damaged, thinking that they were going to salvage the metals or whatever they're going to profit from. Guess what? Started a massive fire. Now we're stuck with 100 batteries that are defective. The problem with these batteries is this. I mean, there's 2 points of thought on this, and I'm talking a chemistry point of view now. I'm talking like a chemist without being a chemist. People think that, okay, you put out the fire, it's over. These batteries have a tendency to react. So sometimes you put them out, and then even though you don't pack them in dry absorbent, they may have some water infiltration, and guess what? The reaction starts all over again and catches up again. And then you have another secondary fire. So it's not like your regular battery that you can just put out, recycle. It has a nasty tendency to react, and that's what's causing us a problem. So, with people not realizing, that it could, just riding a bike or a scooter on city streets causing those vibrations, those defective, cracks in the casement, having water infiltration, overcharging, all of these different situations cause these fires. So,
Sorry, just
I'm sorry.
super quick, Cliff. Do you have the numbers? Like about a month ago, it was like something like 80 fires in the city. That
It was 84 fires and 4 fatalities this year alone.
Yeah.
They're already up over 100 since the meeting on Monday.
yeah.
No more fatalities, nothing.
And most of those, if I remember correctly, they're not, what's the right sort of phrase for this in terms of the batteries? They're sort of like bootleg batteries, right? They're ones that are.
Well, yeah, that's part of the bigger problem is that manufacturers that do not abide by our laws, so out-of-country manufacturers, are flooding the market with phony, very legitimate looking as far as the labeling, but batteries that have been not packaged with great quality control. And not only, and beyond that, you can take good batteries and say your scooter, you damage your scooter, you replace it, you take the batteries off of it, and they take these apart, and then they re-solder them back together to fit the new case, and they're rather industrious in the way they're trying to self-recycle some of the batteries that they can use. It's a battery, right? It doesn't have a switch on it. So they're soldering live batteries together and doing this, causing fires on the bench. This is a substantial problem. I think the one thing, for those who weren't at the meeting and aren't as familiar with this, the energy density in lithium, any of the lithium chemistries, is, we're talking like the equivalent of like gasoline. Like, that's how much energy these batteries put out. So it's not like, oh, it's just a double A battery, but there's 50 of them, it's not that big of a deal. It's each one of these cells has 10 to 15 times the energy of a standard battery that we would use, and now there's 100 of them packed into this case, and they're damaged, and there's water intrusion, and maybe they made it themselves. And we see the amount of them with the delivery
And maybe they're
box.
daisy chaining them in, you know,
Yeah.
bodega basement doing charging, right? I mean, this is a major
Huge problem.
Huge problem.
Yeah, the energy
Yeah, I'm glad we're
density
talking about it.
alone is a massive problem.
So as Commissioner, as you said, it's a major problem, and no agency on its own can address it. It's a multi-agency effort. It's actually, there are parts of it that may go on to higher levels of government, federal levels, but in the interim, you know, waiting for the magic solution, you know, from the upper government levels is not something we can afford to wait for. Because these things happen every single day, unfortunately. You know, some are small scale, and some, unfortunately, you know, go to the point where we have fatalities, which is a shame. You know, trying to remedy this causes a lot of stress on the departments. I mean, on our end, DEP is entrusted under SIMS to dispose of hazardous materials, which we do every day. It's part of our routine. I get calls from OEM, I get them from FD, I get them from sanitation. You know, we find abandoned material, we destroy it, we get it moved. But now what happens when I say I have 50 batteries or 100 batteries, just like I have right now in this facility that we're dealing with, this scrap metal facility. Now, the agency only has so many legal arms that it can stretch. You know, giving an order to a facility to hire a contractor is great. Threatening them with violations of $25,000 is also great. But then when you have a small operation or a small 1 or 2 person operation who loses everything, you know, they lost it already. You know, what would happen in that case when the city has to get involved and I say, here's an order, and the person's already lost everything. There's no insurance. The city eats the cost. That's where the fear is when it comes to, you know, the day-to-day disposal. I mean, there is the life factor, which I definitely respect. I understand the difficulties from FD's end, trying to come up with regulations, and building department's end, trying to come up with regulations, sanitation's end, who's also, you know, jumping in and helping take away some of these things. Our end, when we're trying to get contractors to come in, and contractors actually turn away. They don't want to even store this in their facility. They know that it reignites. So now imagine I have a warehouse of chemicals and I'm bringing this, so they'll charge you an arm and a leg to do it. If the battery, of course, is not damaged, naturally we get a recycler. But once it's defective, burned, in any way affected or compromised, that's it. Now the numbers go out through the roof. I mean, we have, as I said, this case, 100 batteries. Numbers are going to be in the tens of thousands to try to get someone to take it. We are right now trying to get the responsible party to actually go through the process of hiring someone. Now, it's a very difficult process. We do use the ability to put liens on them, but naturally everyone would agree. If the responsible party takes responsibility